If you're a business builder or a wealth builder that wants to use business cash flowing return and get to the punchline, which is making money and then scale, which is how wealth is created no matter what you're doing, franchising wins over entrepreneurship all day long, right? Because the entrepreneur will spend 3 to 5 years just perfecting the model. And a lot of
Right.
times during those first 3 to 5 years, 90% of them run out of money and fail.
Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Richer Geek Podcast. Today, we are meeting Kim Daly. She's one of the top franchise consultants. She's the host of Kim Daly TV on YouTube, and she's been doing this for the last 20 years. If you, like a lot of people, are stuck in your 9 to 5 professional system cubicle life and want to get out, we're going to talk to her about how you can get your own franchise. What is good? Why is it good? And everything franchise. How you doing, Kim?
I'm doing great. I'm so excited to be here.
Well, we're excited to have you. So people can't, they don't know your background yet. They haven't seen anything. So tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got started in franchises.
Okay, so I have been a franchise consultant for 22 years. But franchising, the question we always ask in franchising is, how did franchising find you? Because nobody wakes up,
Mhm.
Michael, and says, "Oh yeah, like let's go start a franchise." Right? Like most of us, there's some problem in our life we're trying to solve for, and you're like, you start thinking outside your box, and you're like, "Wow, what is a franchise?" And you start doing some exploration. So in my case, actually, I mean, that's a little bit of what happened. I was an entrepreneur right out of college, ran my own business for 5 years. But the first job I had before I became an entrepreneur was in franchising, just by luck through a classified ad in the newspaper. And so I knew what franchising was, but I was determined to be the entrepreneur, go the hard way. So I did it, and all of the cliches became true. I was lonely. There's all the things all the advantages that you get in a franchise in terms of systems and processes and people to bounce ideas off of and leadership to ask questions to and people cheering you on and working there with you, working through problems. All of that became, as I started to grow as an entrepreneur, it became very evident that I needed that to really get to where I wanted to be. And so by the time I was 30, I said, you know what? I need a franchise. I turned back to my franchising roots. I found Fran Choice, which is a franchise consulting company. And here I have been. Who knew that this would be the thing for Kim Daly? That's just been the greatest adventure of my life for the last 22 years, helping other people say yes to the dream to own a franchise.
Yeah, and that's fantastic. And I just don't believe that it's been 22 years and you just learned it when you were 30, because you look like you're what, 32 now,
Oh, well,
33.
thank you
So
very
it's,
much. Yeah. I said when I was 9. No, I'm just kidding.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, she was started early, ladies and gentlemen, started her own company at 9 years old. She's now 32. So one of the things that everyone says with franchises, well, I'm just going to do it myself because there's just too much cost involved in franchises. And, sometimes I talk to them and it's like, well, yeah, but you don't have to pay for your website. You don't have to do a lot of the stuff that the franchise will do for you. So can you speak a little bit where they're saying, no, I'll just do my own company and save all this money and not pay it to the person, to the franchise?
Sure. I mean, I think that the costs have to be justified, but the reason that you invest in the franchise really is to buy down that learning curve. So I think it
Mm-hmm.
depends what your goals are. If you're a business builder or a wealth builder that wants to use business cash flowing return and get to the punchline, which is making money and then scale, which is how wealth is created no matter what you're doing, franchising wins over entrepreneurship all day long, right? Because the entrepreneur will spend 3 to 5 years just perfecting the model. And a lot of
Right.
times during those first 3 to 5 years, 90% of them run out of money and fail. Right. But that 90% failure statistic is not owned in franchising. So over here in those same 3 to 5 years, if you're an empire builder who wants to work on the business, not in the business. You're buying systems and tools packaged from day one. You're executing on those proven plans, moving toward profitability. And in 3 to 5 years, you could have 3 to 5 locations up and running. That's how you build wealth. So they're both good. It just depends what your goals are as an investor.
Yeah, and that's why I do a lot of the franchise hotels. Is number one, especially if you get a brand, it's something that is known. People are searching for you. It's like, oh, I want to go to this. I know this name because I see the commercials and the advertisements. And it's the same thing when you have an independent hotel next to a Hilton. The Hilton has 100 million plus rewards members. So it's most likely that I'm going to go with something or be more successful with a company that's already out there. They've already made the mistakes, right? The franchise, they've developed the processes. It's almost like, would you consider like kind of like a turnkey business?
Yeah. Well, and flip the script for a minute and think about it from the consumer perspective, right? So, why do we as consumers love franchises? Because we know what to expect, right? What is a brand? A brand is a consistent consumer experience, right? Even though you're going to have to beg me to show you food if you're listening. I am the number one consultant in the US and I will not show you food because there's faster, easier, better ways to make money. But we all know food. So, I'm going to talk about Chick-fil-A for a minute.
Yep.
So, we're not standing in a Chick-fil-A store, but we know exactly what Chick-fil-A stands for. How do we
Yep.
know that? Because their franchisees over a 30 or 40-year period that they've been franchising have executed with such perfection to the core values of that brand that it today enjoys the build it and they will come feel, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's what we're trying to build in a franchise, to your point, depending on where in the life cycle of the brand you invest. Are you jumping in after it's already a big brand and you might not get really good locations? Or do you have the vision to come in at the beginning by finding leadership that inspires you? They're backed by, strong experience and find good, have good, a lot of money, and you can ride that wave up with them. So 5 to 10 years, when the world wakes up and everybody wants one, right? This is what happened with Massage Envy. This is what happened with Orange Theory Fitness.
Mm-hmm.
All of a sudden, all these members wanted to own a club. Well, there are no more clubs by the time people were saying that. But that's when those pioneering franchisees who took a risk and opened locations had the most mature stores in a market, and they could raise their hand and say, well, there's no more new locations, but you could pay me 6 times my EBITDA and you could have mine. And they were getting it, right? So it's not like the Orange Theory or Massage Envy holds on to that type of multiple, but there's a moment when the brand wakes up. And so you can put yourself in that position. And how do you learn about those brands before they become the next big thing? That's why you would work with someone like Kim Daly, who's in the know on kind of who's who, because it takes very strong leadership to really pull all this together and actually succeed in building the brand. And it takes a lot of money, right? So investing in a franchise is not really like, oh, I like to work out. I think I'll go buy the gym, or my community doesn't have a fill in the blank UPS store. I think I should go do that. That's not how I'm going to help you select your happily ever after business, right? It's more about what outcomes you're trying to drive in your life. And then how much scale do you need to create the revenue that you want this investment to produce for you? And that helps to determine whether we can come into a more mature brand, because that's what everybody wants, of course. But sometimes the mature brands don't have the location potential for you to step in. It's already been sold.
Yeah, it's interesting. I know someone back in the day that owned a Subway. And I was like, wow, you must be rolling, and they're like, no, you can't do anything with one Subway.
No.
You need 5, you need multiples.
Yeah.
And so talk a little bit about that, because, there are websites that you can go on that sell franchises, they're just kind of listed. And so I can make the mistake and go, oh, okay, this is cool. It's a scuba franchise. I love scuba diving. And that'll be my second question about, what makes money and can you make money off your passion, that type of a thing. But the first one is, the scalability, like, you're kind of mentioning the importance of using someone like Kim Daly to sit there and say, yeah, you know what, you may not want this one unless you can afford four of them, or the locations. What are some of the factors that you bring into play to help people out so that they know that they're not, the expectations are correct, I should say.
Yeah, that's a very loaded question. So let me back up and say, okay, when people think about owning a business, a franchise, maybe they go to an expo that comes around their area on the weekend, or maybe they turn to Entrepreneur, produces the top 500 franchises of the year. And so they start looking there, or they go to some of these websites, or just start Googling, right? Hot franchises, trending franchises. Well, for most people, those activities lead you to more questions than answers. So you may be able to find a couple of brands that you think, oh, this could be interesting for me. But do those franchises utilize your best skills? Do they make you the owner that you want to be or don't want to be? Are you going to be hiring and training and leading teams of people that you want to be hiring, training, and leading, right? Is your time going to be spent in the business the way that you want it to be spent? And how much of that time do you want spent? None of those questions can be answered through any of the mechanisms that I just mentioned for finding a business. But when you come to me, we're going to start with the end. So we're going to talk more about what is the vision you're trying to create. If you are a high W-2 earner, but you're like, I can't leave my $500,000 job until I have something to fall back on, right? Okay, well, we have semi-absentee businesses. Another reason entrepreneurship would be out, because you would have to dive in and be 110%. But in the right franchise with the right structure, you can come in as what we call a semi-absentee owner, which means you're part-time in the business and you have a full-time general manager. But then we have businesses that are even one more step removed. Think like a laundromat,
Yep.
no employees, or one employee, one part-time attendant. So it's very minimal like going ons there that require an owner. So it's more about location, getting it up and operating, and then checking on it, but not working in it, right? So again, the point of using someone like me is we're going to figure out, what are you trying to do with this business in your life? What's your why? What's motivating you? And then design the character, like talk about the characteristics. So the people you create jobs for, I'm going to measure your risk tolerance. We're going to talk about the hours you want to put in and don't want to put in. Are you building something to scale and sell? Are you building it as a legacy that maybe you want to leave for your children? Because those are different outcomes in some cases, right? If you want to build to scale, it's probably not like a laundromat that's going to be more slow and steady. I mean, maybe you could do that, but again, setting expectations about earnings versus if you wanted to do over the next 5 to 7 years, jump in on something that's trending that may have a peak exit strategy in 5 to 7 years. It's definitely not a laundromat, right? It's a totally different class of investment. So, but then on top of all of that, Michael, I have the relationships. So franchising is more about who than what, because you can take, like you mentioned, Subway. So let's compare Subway. Do you remember the brand Blimpies?
Mm-hmm.
Blimpies? Not Blimpies. No. What was the one in Texas? It was a sub it went bankrupt. My point is it went bankrupt, but it was arguably a better sub. It was like an oven roasted sub. Well, they came out there and they floundered around. They went bankrupt. They reformed. They came back out again. And meanwhile, Subway is just a way lesser sub, but it's growing and growing and growing, and was on the number one on the Entrepreneur 500 for years, just because of the number of outlets they had around the world. Why? It wasn't because the subs was better than other subs. It was because the leadership was better, right? So it's always about who, not what. The same reason you would go take a job with this company over this company, because you like the people you're in business with. Well, one of the most important criteria when you work with me is I want to get to understand your personality and where I think you're going to thrive. Like when I work with veterans, there are certain franchises where the whole camaraderie just feels like the military, like, and not in like that, like, like hard, but like, it's just, there's like kind of an alpha guy feel to the franchise, right?
Yeah, I wouldn't know anything about that.
But if you're not that kind of person, maybe that kind of business turns you up. That culture turns you
Yeah.
up. And so I know all of this stuff. So the matching process, you're going to be able to take for granted
Mm.
so many things. You're going to be like, wow. I mean, hopefully all of these businesses feel just like me, Kim. You're going to think the whole world feels like that. No, it's because I curated that list for you
Hmm.
based on my knowledge and relationships and experience. So you go out there on your own, none of those things are known. Not to mention,
Yeah.
is the territory open? Do they have an FDD registered in your state? Can they even award you a franchise? And ultimately, the last thing I'll say here is franchising is a partnership, right? So this is where you get to be in business for yourself, but not by yourself. So ultimately, it's the franchisor's business to award to you. It's not even your business to buy.
Hmm.
So this is a mutual evaluation
Hmm.
process that takes
Yeah.
place over the course of 1 to 2 months. And so the last and probably most important piece of what I do for my candidates is deliver confidence to you that during this due diligence process, you're asking the right questions, you're talking to the right people. I have all the resources for lending. I'm not going to give you legal advice on that FDD, the franchise legal documents, but I'm going to help you get through it so you understand in context how not to take it out of context, right? All those evil fees, I'm going to help you understand they're not so evil. So
Yeah.
when people say, wow, I looked at franchises, but I never did it, I just never felt like I knew enough to confidently say yes. Well, that is absolutely not going to happen here, nor are you going to have to spend 6 months. I am very, very good at 6 weeks from start to finish, and my services are free. Throw that in at the end.
Well, there you go, everybody. It's I look at some franchises and I just scratch my head. It's because I don't think they look at the location, or I should say the amount. I think it's like this is the top spot in Scottsdale, the highest rent, and you're selling a franchise cupcake. Like, how many thousands of cupcakes do you have to sell just to break even? But well, I'm in this
I hear
posh
you.
place, and I'm like, yeah, you can be a couple blocks away and save 3,000 a month in rent or something. Um,
It's part of the reason I don't like transactional business like food.
yeah.
If you're going to take on big fixed costs, I want you to have something wrapped in a membership where you have controlled,
Hmm.
predictable revenue that's also matched to that rent. So it's part of, again, my matching strategies usually don't include food or retail. It doesn't mean I don't do brick and mortar. I just like brick and mortar where there's a human element and there's usually some type of membership. So, like, these anti-aging spas that are popping up are amazing businesses of fitness, wellness, weight loss, skincare. There are so many beauty brands, eyelashes wrapped in a membership where the
Hmm.
membership re-encourages the woman to come back with discounts, right? Rather than jumping from salon to salon to salon, let's build a relationship together, become a loyal member, and we're going to offer you discounts for your loyalty. So there's it again, it's just education.
Hmm.
People don't know. They don't think through this. I've been thinking through this for you for 20 years.
And that's why you use the experts. Every podcast I have, everybody, you've all listened to them. I bring in the experts, I bring in the mentors so that you don't have to make the mistakes. They've made them, they've figured it out.
Yeah.
Go with the experts. I keep telling people, it's like, Mike, I want to buy a hotel. And I'm like, who are you going to partner with? Well, I'm just going to do it. And I'm like, well, and then in 6 months, I'll buy your hotel when you go bankrupt. Um, you hope they don't do that, but it's it's free. It's out there. Use
Totally.
experts. Use mentors. I still have business mentors, coaches.
Me too.
It's just crazy. So
Me too.
let's talk about COVID and things, economic downturns. Who knows
Yeah.
what the world's coming to? How does franchise beat that system? Beat the no matter if it's down, whether it's up, franchises still
Yeah.
do well.
mean, ultimately, Mike, the success of your business is determined by you, the owner, right?
Mhm.
I had zero franchisors go bankrupt during COVID, zero. And I work with, I don't know, 300 or 400 franchisors.
Mhm.
So the leadership was there. Does that mean all of their franchisees followed the leader? Heck no. Right. And I know that surprises people on the outside. They think, wait a minute, these people bought a franchise and then they don't listen to the franchisor. That's 1,000% what I'm saying. That's for another conversation that we will have one-to-one. Like, why does that happen? Anyway. So, in good times and bad, in general, the franchise industry grows. I mean, look, I made history in my franchise as a franchise consultant in the recession of 2000. Yeah, I went from 2010 to 2011. I did over 350% more revenue than I had done in my first 8 years in 1 year. I made history. I built the largest franchise consulting business that had ever been built at that time in 2011 in the heart of the recession. People had lost their money in the stock market. The real estate market was trash, but why? Because I saw all of the people losing their jobs and I was laser focused. I'm like, we have got to save these people. They are going to find the money if they understand that franchising is an option for them. Because a lot of times when people lose a job, they are so angry, right? And I don't blame them. I gave my life to you and then you just let me go,
Yeah.
right? And so they don't want to go back, or they go back begrudgingly, but they're like, I'm never going to trust you again. So I need one foot in corporate America. Go ahead. I'm going to take the paycheck and I'm going to use you while I build my own cash flow that I own and can control. So the day that I know I can afford my life and I'm confident, I'm going to pink slip the job. That's what I saw in 2010 when a lot of other consultants didn't. They just saw the stock market crash and this and made all the excuses. And I was laser focused and I made history. And then the same thing happened during the pandemic. So we all had a moment where we were like, oh no, what are we going to do now?
Yeah.
But very quickly got myself together and said, when there's obstacle, there's always opportunity. You got to find it. So for me, I used to travel and host live events all over the country. And then I couldn't get on the airplane and do my April event. Well, for me, I turned on the camera, built my YouTube channel. It was the greatest thing that ever happened to me. I will never have to travel again unless I want to. And I reached more people every single day. Now I generate leads in my sleep. So, like, again, if you're looking for the opportunity, and all of my franchisors were looking for the opportunity, my fitness franchisors were like, look, all these mom and pop businesses, they're going out and sadly they are not coming back. They can't continue to pay rent. They're gone. They're done.
Mhm.
Go get that historic lease, because that landlord, he doesn't know either what's going to happen. So if you go in and say, let's work together and let's sign a lease, these
Yeah.
people got unprecedented leases, right? So with leadership and people coming together, the franchisor was able to help the franchisees adapt and adjust models. And of course, if you were in home services, which is my sweetest spot in franchising, that's where I placed the majority of my people over 20
Mhm.
years, you were thriving anyway, right? Because the home services started, we started
Yeah.
creating work from home, school from home. Everybody got a puppy. Everybody got a pool. Now we needed outdoor lights. Now we needed mosquito spraying. Now we needed somebody to walk the dog, groom the dog. So like all of these businesses, which are franchise businesses, exploded
Yeah.
just by the way that we all adapted to live during that time. So it was really all about watching it happen was just amazing. But really, it's just all about, if you're looking for opportunity, sometimes the greatest opportunity is when everybody else is focused on the obstacle. But it
Mhm.
ultimately always comes back to the owner of the business to be able to focus and follow the leadership of the franchisor. And listen, talking about it is one thing, but doing it was definitely quite another, right? It's just like
Mhm.
going to the trainer and saying, I'm going to lose 50 pounds and stick to this program and eat well is one thing. Following through and doing it,
That's
quite
yeah.
another.
The fitness people make all their money in January and February when people sign up, and then because they know that by June they'll be back to the same amount of people, but they have all these people locked in for a year contracts, and yeah, it's hard to actually do it and keep it. You know,
It always comes back to your big, strong, powerful why. which is
Mm-hmm.
why when I first meet you and you tell me you want to explore franchising, I'm going to say, why? Like, what's
Yeah.
motivating this desire to own a business? Because if you don't have a motivation that's deep,
Mm-hmm.
like when it gets hard, you're not going to want to do it. And trust me, it doesn't mean that, like, even when it's hard, even as passionate as I am about my business, there are days when I say I don't want to do it either. But then I'm always like, hard compared to what? I'm the
That's right.
best self-checker. It's like, Kim, just like hard compared to what? Like, let's
Yeah.
rate our hard. Like, my life is hard sometimes, but compared to what?
Compared to what, and I have friends that cross check me very quickly when I'm like, oh man, my life. And they're like going, shut up. You know?
That's because you built it in such a way that you're the master. You've created that. And that's when people come to me, a lot of times I'm the first person they meet, the first coach they have in their life that helps them to really own their creative power, to say, what do you want to do with the next 5, 10, 15 years of your life? A
Mm-hmm.
lot of times people never really ask themselves that question. And so a
Right.
lot of what I do, there is a lot of psychology in it, because it's without that, I mean, anybody, any consultant can just bring you ideas. That's like a quarter of what I'm going to do for you, but really
Yeah.
helping you design the life. Because believe it or not everybody wants to own a business to become a millionaire,
Mm-hmm.
right? There's a lot of people that would just die to be home in the
Yes.
evening with their family,
Yes.
to be able to coach their kids soccer or just attend a sporting event for their children. Like, quality of life is rated higher than money
Yep.
for a lot of people.
Yep.
So when you're and on that note, when you're validating with franchisees and you say you're a money maker, like I am, like I'm like, give me the numbers. How what kind of scale can we build this to? You have to keep that in mind. You're not always
Mm-hmm.
validating apples to apples with people, because there's a lot of people that own businesses who do it for a better quality of life than they had in corporate America, not to go on and scale and build a multi-million-dollar
Yeah.
empire.
Yeah. That's absolutely true. Because I always tell people that want to get into real estate, investing in all these different things. And that is the first thing is, and when I speak, it's like, I always tell people, what is your why? And I tell them, it's like, and it better not be money, because
That's shallow. Scale.
well, money will come. If you do it correctly,
It's
the
so
money
true.
will come, right?
Yeah.
Um,
I'm just joking. I'm the biggest, I say that all the time. I'm like,
yeah.
look, if you only want money, you're misinterpreting the whole equation, because you
Right.
have to show up and serve the people. You serve the people, or you lead your team to serve people, and then you receive money for that service. So the money is only going to come at the level that you can serve. And so
That's
therein
right.
lies the scale. How do I leverage my time
Mm-hmm.
across teams, across locations, across multiple trucks? If you had like a 1-800 got junk, how do I leverage
Mm-hmm.
myself? And again, that's coming full circle. That's where franchising comes in, when they come in with amazing software that you as an entrepreneur would probably never take the time or money to create. And you get this software from day one for routing, for dispatching your teams, for everything, call centers that can answer your phone, so you don't have to hire an admin person to sit in an office that you're paying for. You just get to pay cost per lead,
Mm-hmm.
and they field that call back to your zip code, because you buy a protected territory of zip codes from the franchise. So the leverage that empowers you to be the CEO who gets to work on rather than in. That's
Yeah.
what this is about in
And I
franchising.
like it to where I can do it from anywhere in the world I want to. The big thing, I had this big thing because I had a business coach ask me my why, and it what I found out is, what did I want in life, and it goes right along the lines of what you're talking about. Is I wanted to build a life that I did not need a vacation from,
Awesome.
and I could be in an RV somewhere, I can be up in the mountains, I can be over in Europe, I can do whatever and still run my company, and that all of a sudden became, I like that a lot better. I can not make another dime in my life. I want to keep it going. I don't want to go down. But the life part is just the freedom, the stress relief, the fact that I can go golf and then work after golf. I get to choose when and where. And you get that with a lot of the franchises. Once you get it going and build a team up, let's talk before we leave. And that's the whole thing. You don't, I know a lot of franchisees that I'm like, oh, don't you ever take a day off? You know, they own the different stores in the strip malls. I'm like, no, I can't. You know, it's like, oh, so you just traded one work for another work. And I'm like, build your team.
Yeah. And sometimes that they need a business coach, but then sometimes that's for the personality of the owner, right? Sometimes work is the person's hobby. Like, let's be real. So again, when you're validating franchising or you hear these stories, don't limit what's possible for you based off of how somebody else is doing it. That's where someone like me comes in and I'm going to be like, wait a minute, we have to challenge that, because that could very well just be, I know I've worked with thousands of people. I have placed almost 1,000 people. I've created nearly 1,000 small business owners in my lifetime now, in 20 years of consulting, which is amazing. But think of the thousands more that have gone through my process and haven't become owners. And I hear all the limiting beliefs that people throw up and stand behind. And I'm not judging. Most of what we believe is going to happen doesn't happen. Most of what we believe is true isn't true. If you're willing to have someone like me who's in your corner, I'm not trying to talk you into it. I'm just trying to challenge your thinking to make sure you're thinking all the way through it. And then ultimately you say yes or no. It's all good for me. I just want you to be a decision maker. So, but challenging your thoughts, because limiting beliefs will limit you for sure. Assumptions will limit you. We got to challenge those assumptions to make sure it's true, because most of the time it's not.
Yeah. So, you know, before we leave, I want to hit on thedailycoach.com. Let's get to the website. I go to it, I click, what do I see? And a little bit about your ebook, some learning, some educational stuff. What is thedailycoach.com?
Okay, so a couple of things. When you go to my website, if you are curious, if you're fit to be a franchise owner, there's a little pop quiz that you can take. And then from there, you can download my ebook on how to pick a winning franchise. A lot of the stuff that you're going to read in there, we've kind of talked about some of the highlights of that today. Also, if you go over to kimdaly.tv, that's DALY, you can also, of course, get there from my website. I have over 800 videos on YouTube, all long form, short form, on all subjects, from mindset coaching, business coaching, but of course, mostly on franchising, what it is, what it's not, dispelling myths, setting it up, helping you understand fees, helping you talk about those evil fees those franchisors charge you, and all of the things that I know everybody thinks, because again, I've stood before thousands of audiences for 20 years and had so much fun doing it.
Yeah, because here's the thing, the higher the fee, if it's based on a percentage, because I said this like, oh my God, the hotel franchise fees are what? But it just means it's like, oh yes, well, because I grossed a lot more that month. And I'm like, okay, it's kind of a good thing.
It's understanding how it all works together, not taking one part out of context and assuming that you understand how business works. You gotta, there's all these people in a franchise. They're not all dumb, and you're the smart one who found the gotcha, right? Like, if they're all doing it and they're happy, right? The fees must work out, and they always do.
They always do. Absolutely. Everybody, Kim Daly, thedailycoach.com. Look up for her .tv on YouTube, your YouTube channel. And Kim, it's been absolutely wonderful. And thank you for coming on the Richer Geek Podcast. Have a great day.